I'm a recent transplant to San Antonio, Texas, and in my excursions around town, I always see white-tailed deer in one area or another. They are here regardless of construction, tearing down of roads, and all the suburban noise. So, over these past few weeks, I have set out to determine what effects urbanization has had on the deer populations. I chose to compare an urbanized with a more natural area to begin my observations. The first site was McAllister Park. This park would act as my natural control. It is 926 acres with much biodiversity in the area. It is very wooded and lined with a countless number of beautiful overhanging oak trees and several creek beds that run through this area. The second site in Shady Oaks would act as my urbanized control. This is a small 247-acre subdivision off of a major highway that backs up a very small nature preserve. The methodologies that were chosen to help compare these populations was, first, I decided to take 3 transects in each area and do a count of each individual white-tailed deer I would observe and keep record of my counts for each transect. Second, while researching for data on white-tailed deer, I came across a formula used by Texas A&M Agricultural Department to calculate forage production. This allows us to take a sample of the low-lying grasses in my selected sites and find out how many white-tailed deer the land could reasonably accommodate. My hypothesis on my data is that forage production in Shady Oaks would not be able to support a large population. However, this site would continuously have the larger population. During my transect on each site, I kept a record of how many white-tailed deer I observed at each location. McAllister Park Transect 1 took place August 27th around 6 p.m. I observed 3 bucks and 3 does during this time in the evening. They were out foraging before bedding down for the night. Transect 2 was on September 3rd around 2 p.m. I observed 5 bucks, 8 does, and 2 fawns. I did not expect to see as many head as I did because this was in the heat of the afternoon. Transect 3 was on September 11th around 5:30. I encountered 14 bucks, 22 doe, and 3 fawns. This was a significantly increased difference in the normal counted head. I was unaware of any shift or change in the area that would have caused this type of increase. In total, I encountered a number of 61 white-tailed deer throughout my McAllister Park transects. My Shady Oak transects I did right after I would visit McAllister Park. So in Shady Oaks, transect 1, I observed over 40 mixed head, including bucks, does, and fawns. I noticed that the residents in this area were leaving corn and vegetables out for the deer. Transect 2, I had to cut my observations short and was unable to make it out for observation to this site due to inclement weather, including lightning, downpours, and flash flooding. When I went back for Transect 3, I observed approximately 47 head. They were a bit more difficult to keep track of as they were in clumped groups and consistently moving while foraging. For my forage productivity experiment, I had to bring with me a 12-inch ruler, a pair of scissors, and Ziploc bags. I went back out to McAllister Park to choose a sample area near to where I had previously seen the deer foraging in my transect. I measured out a square foot area using my 12-inch ruler by placing the ruler on the ground and using the closed scissor to mark on the dirt alongside the ruler. I then repeated this process on 3 additional sides to create a square. Once my area was marked out, I took the scissors and clipped the top of the grass down to about an inch off the dirt as to not completely pull the grass out. Once I had my grass clippings, I placed them in a Ziploc bag, labeled them with their prospective areas, and repeated this process in Shady Oaks. After, I went out and bought a small scale. Once the grass set out for approximately 3 days, I placed each sample on my scale to collect the weight of the sample in grams. My McAllister sample was approximately 17.2 grams in weight, while my Shady Oaks sample was only about 4.6 grams in weight. I then took the sample measurements and plugged them into the forage productivity formula as you see here. This is carrying capacity equals forage in pound per acre times 0.25 times the number of grazable acres. This gives us an approximate estimate of how many pounds of forage are produced in 1 year. While the whitetail's diet vary throughout the year depending on season, dietary need, male versus female, and other factors, the average forage needed per year per head would be approximately 2,555 pounds. Once calculated, I took the total forage productivity and divided it by the 2,555 pounds. This determined that McAllister Park's estimated forage production was 31,838.92 pounds, while Shady Oaks' estimated forage production was 3,039.33 pounds. The total estimate forage production by the pounds of forage needed per 1 year for one individual. While forage production determines that McAllister Park should support the larger herds, we consistently see higher populations in Shady Oaks study area. I believe this is now an urbanized herd that has learned to rely on alternative food sources provided by the human residents of Shady Oaks subdivision, such as corn, vegetable, and grains. This provides less competition between individuals, allowing the population to flourish uncontrollably, and with a lack of predators and hunting in the area, there is no limiting factor on their populations. While in McAllister Park we have observed a consistent population and the forage productivity to support the herd, we cannot dismiss the fact that this forage production is not consistent and can change due to environmental factors such as drought, the seasonal dietary members of the herd. In conclusion, while McAllister Park supporting the natural whitetail herd has the higher forage productivity, they have been determined to have the lower population. The urbanization of this area has affected deer populations, as we can see in Shady Oaks. The population in this area has consistent outside food sources the deer can rely on, such as corn and vegetables left out by the residents. There is no competition for resources and no limiting factor on their population, such as predators or hunting. This allows Shady Oaks area to support a larger herd and thus the higher population determined by our field data.